कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयम् तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये। नारायणं पद्मभुवं वसिष्ठं शक्तिं च तत्पुत्रपराशरं च व्यासं शुकं गौडपदं महान्तं गोविन्दयोगीन्द्रमथास्य शिष्यं श्रीशङ्कराचार्यमथास्य पद्मपादं च हस्तामलकं च शिष्यं तन्तोटकं वार्तिककारमन्यान् अस्मद्गुरून् सन्ततमानतोऽस्मि। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। परब्रह्मनिष्ठं स्वतो धर्मनिष्ठम् अहिंसैकनिष्ठं स्वशिष्यै सुजुष्टं यतीनां वरिष्ठं गुरूणां गरिष्ठं दयानन्दरूपं मदाचार्यमीडे। नमः श्रीपरमार्थाय संसाराध्यासनाशिने श्रोत्रियब्रह्मनिष्ठाय तस्मै ब्रह्मविदे नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ I welcome you all to the first class of the Atma Bodha series. So with the Mangala Charanam and the Guru Parampara Vandanam, we invoke Ishvara's blessings, Ishvara's grace and Guru's grace for an obstacle-free pursuit of our study of Atma Bodha. So in these classes, we are going to study this text, Atma Bodha, that is authored by none other than Bhagavad Adi Shankaracharya. And there is no particular requirement for a textbook per se for this, because we will be mainly relying on the Sanskrit shlokas, and we will not be relying on any particular translation. But if you would like to get a book, then there is this book called Atma Bodha Self-Knowledge, published by Ramakrishna Mission and by Swami Nikhilananda. If you can see that here. So if you can get a copy of this, then there are the shlokas in Devanagari with a lot of additional notes. We'll be primarily referring to the shlokas in Devanagari. So if you can get that, it'll be useful, and you can also look at the notes if you have the time, but it's not a requirement. So before we enter the text per se, before we enter even the first shloka, we'll first dwell upon the title, which is Atma Bodha. What does Atma Bodha mean? Atma means the self, or the real meaning of the word I. Real meaning of the word I, this word I that I have been using all my life. What does it really mean? Atma refers to the self, my real self. And Bodha refers to knowledge. Atma Bodha is Atmanaha Bodha, the knowledge of the self or self-knowledge. So somebody can ask a question to begin with. As to why do I need self-knowledge? Why do I need this Atma Bodha? I already know myself. I know myself better than anybody else. I know that I was born on such and such a date. And I was born in this town or this village, and these are my parents. And then I went to this school, and I had this sickness when I was young, and then I passed school, I went to college, and then I got a job at this and this such and such a place. I got married, and I've been working at this place. I'm staying here. This is my wife. These are my children. So I can talk about myself for any length of time that you want me to talk. I can talk about myself for 2 minutes. I can also talk about myself for 2 hours if you're willing to listen, or even 2 days. Well, because I know so much about myself. So I don't think I need anybody else to tell me who I am. I don't think I need to read a book to know who I am. And I don't think I need to attend any classes or Atma Bodha. I already have Atma Bodha. So what are you talking about? So we say, if somebody talks like this, we say, okay, all right. You don't need Atma Bodha. You don't need to know yourself. Just be happy. Just be happy. Then he comes back and says, how do I be happy? We say, know yourself. This is why you need self-knowledge. So you mean to say that if I know myself, I'll be happy? We tell him that what you know about yourself right now, presently, is what makes you unhappy. That's what makes you suffer. That's what makes you struggle. So he says, I don't quite understand this completely, but elaborate on this. So there's a story in this regard, a small story. There was a poor man, and he was once visited by a Mahatma. The poor man served the Mahatma, and the Mahatma was pleased with him. And he saw that he was in a lot of poverty. So he said that there's a room behind your house. Now, there's a in that corner in the room, there is a table. And on that table, there is a certain object. Do you know what that object is? Do you know what it is? So he says, yeah, I know. I have seen it since I was a child. I know. What is it? He says, yeah, it's on the table. He says, it's on the table. It's on the broken table. So Mahatma says, yes. But you tell me, what is it? Then he says that it's underneath that dusty fan. It's underneath the dusty fan. So he says, okay, but what is that object? Tell me, what is it? Then he says it's near the soiled cloth. Okay, but tell me, what is it? He says it's next to the dirty broom. You're not telling me what is it. You tell me what it is. It's near the dustbin. Yes, yes, but what is it? Yes, I have been thinking that it is it's covered with dust. You still have not told me what is it. It's some worthless stone. So he says, Mahatma says, you have not really known what it is. You go and get it from me. You go and get that stone. He goes there and he picks up the stone and he says, here, take it. So yes, Mahatma looks at it and he says, now you take it and you rub this dirt of this stone. And he looks at it, he doesn't understand why he's asking him to do all this, but he rubs the dirt of the stone. And then underneath, there's some dazzling gem-like thing. So now the Mahatma says, tell me what it is. Yeah, I never knew that there was something like this in that dirty place. This looks like some gem. And he asks. Mahatma says that this is one of the most precious gems that you can find in all of India. You have been a very rich, a very wealthy person, but you have not known this all this while because you mistook this to be something else. So then he was overjoyed to see this because all of his suffering due to the poverty was gone because of this. So to this person who rattled off his entire biography, we tell him that you have not still known yourself. You think that you know yourself, but in that thinking that you know yourself, you have made a massive mistake. There's something very, very, very significant about you that you have missed. You have not really known yourself. So he says, okay, so I see. So you're saying that with self-knowledge, I come to know something about myself. But what does the knowledge do? Say, that alone holds the key to your unconditional fulfillment. Unconditional fulfillment that we call Pūrṇatvam. We give it a name, Pūrṇatvam. So this is why you need self-knowledge. Okay. But if there's something really so significant about me, why is it that I make such a big mistake? So we say that there are some preconditions for a mistake to happen. If something is entirely unknown, then it cannot be mistaken. If something is entirely known also, it cannot be mistaken. So we give the example that you're just walking in the village at dusk. Let's take the example that you're walking in pitch darkness first. Walking in pitch darkness. There's a rope lying nearby. So in pitch darkness, you have total ignorance of the rope. When there's total ignorance of the rope, you cannot mistake it to be something else. You don't see anything at all, you just blissfully walk by. When you're walking at noon in complete brightness, then also there is no possibility of mistaking the rope to be something else. You see the rope as a rope. Now let us say that you're walking at dusk. It's not totally bright nor totally dark. And in this situation, you see something that is long and curved. But you don't know exactly what it is. So you have partial knowledge, enough knowledge to say this is long and curved. This is what we call samanya jnanam. Samanya jnanam is there. Something long and curved. There's something long and curved. But the vishesha jnanam of what this is exactly, the specific knowledge I don't have. And we say when these two conditions come together, the samanya jnanam is there, the vishesha jnanam is not there. This is the ideal condition for a mistake. Immediately, the mind jumps to a judgment. This is a snake. This is a snake. And he doesn't even suspect, even remotely, that the judgment is wrong. Immediately, there's fear that arises. He starts to sweat. He starts to scream. He starts to call the other people. And everybody joins and they start to beat this thing. So the sequence of things is that first there is ignorance. Ignorance of something. Something is not known for what it is. Ajnanam. And because the Vishesha Jnanam is absent, the Samanya Jnanam is there, the very next step is the mistake. So ignorance invariably leads to a mistake. It's called adhyasa. Adhyasa means mistake. The ajnanam leads to adhyasa. And then there are a lot of actions that arise out of this mistake. Karma. So the sequence is ajnanam, adhyasa, karma. Ignorance, mistake, action. Now, are these actions really going to solve all of this problem that he's having of sweating, of the fear, of all this confusion, all this disturbance in the mind? Is that going to go away by just hitting the snake? Never, never. So, ignorance of something can result in struggle and suffering. This is what this example illustrates. Okay? And then how is this relevant to myself? When it comes to self-knowledge, how is this example relevant? We say that a human being is a highly self-conscious being, has a very highly evolved sense of I am. I am there. I exist. I know that I exist. So the samanya jnanam that I am is there. But then, if he doesn't have the vishesha jnanam of who I really am, what I really am, then he invariably makes a mistake about who I am. He starts to think that I am XYZ. Whatever XYZ may be, XYZ may vary from person to person. There are some things that are common across all human beings in terms of the XYZ, like I am limited, I am mortal. This is a common thing across all human beings. But somebody else may say, I am sad, I am jealous, I am healthy, I am sick. So there are a lot of conclusions and judgments that start to surround this I am in the absence of the Vishesha Jnanam. And the most generalized conclusion across all human beings, if we say, there is one common conclusion that I am deficient, I am wanting, I am inadequate. Or in short, I am Apūrṇaḥ. So I am Apūrṇaḥ. This is the general conclusion that every human being has. So how do I know that this is a general conclusion? Have I seen this conclusion? Can I look at the brain under a microscope and say that this is the general conclusion? We say, no, it cannot be seen under a microscope. But we can infer that this is a general conclusion by looking at the pursuits of the human being. For example, if a person is lame, then the person needs crutches to walk, cannot stand on his own feet. Similarly, a person who thinks that I am deficient, I am wanting, I am inadequate, such a person compulsively engages in many pursuits that make the sense of deficiency, the sense of inadequacy, it becomes evident from the pursuits of the human being. And the second thing that makes this evident is if you converse with the human being, very soon there will be all kinds of complaints that come out. The complaints indicate that I am deficient, I am wanting, I am inadequate. DWI, deficient, wanting, inadequate. Or in short, Apūrṇaḥ. So what are the pursuits like? What crutches does this person need to make him feel more complete, more adequate? He needs the crutches of Artha, Kāma, and Dharma. The pursuit of Artha, which is the pursuit of money, the pursuit of food, clothing, shelter. There is a certain objective extent to which this pursuit is definitely required. There is a certain extent to which this pursuit is required. There is no denying that. But then even beyond that, when inadequacy continues, there's a compulsive pursuit of Artha. In short, pursuit of security. I feel insecure and therefore I have to somehow pursue securities from the world. And then there is Kāma, pursuit of sense pleasures. Contacting sense objects. That contact gives a certain sense of fulfillment. But these are crutches this person definitely needs, because without all of that, this sense of inadequacy is not tolerable. And then there is a pursuit of Dharma. When one pursues prayers and rituals, what for? Why is he pursuing Dharma? We look into it, it's for my own welfare in terms of Artha and Kāma, for my future Artha and future Kāma, for future better situations, for better situations in the future, in this world or in another world. So one pursues all of this as crutches because their pursuit helps me ease this sense of inadequacy, this sense of deficiency that I'm feeling. So let us see what the source of this inadequacy is. What does a human being talk about when he talks about the inadequacy? So there are a few things that the human being is related to, sees himself as being related to. And the first of these are the five things: the body, the mind, the family, the possessions, the profession. So I look upon myself as this body. And this body has got limited existence. It was born on a certain date and it will die on a certain day. The body is mortal. So I have limited existence as the body. I am Apūrṇaḥ in terms of my existence because of this mortality. And the body has a limited physique. It has a certain height, a certain weight. Sometimes someone, and some of this is subjective, one may feel Apūrṇaḥ, inadequate, because I'm overweight. Or somebody else feels inadequate, saying that I am underweight. Or there are the looks. I don't look as good as somebody else. Or there is the health of the body. The body, by its nature, goes through various kinds of health issues, some of them curable, some of them not curable. So these kinds of things, from the standpoint of the body, because of my association with the body, I say that I am inadequate, Apūrṇaḥ. And then there is a mind. The mind is limited in terms of its intelligence, in terms of its skills, in terms of the virtues. So all of this can make me feel inadequate. And then there are desires and cravings that can arise in the mind. And the desire and the craving makes me feel incomplete until the object of desire is attained. Mind compares. Because of comparisons, there can be jealousy. Again, a feeling of inadequacy, Apūrṇatvam. There can be a disturbed mind. When the mind is disturbed, I say, I am disturbed. Lack of peace. Because my mind is disturbed, I lack peace. Again, inadequate, Apūrṇaḥ. And then we come to the family. I may feel that I have done so much for this family member. It may be the spouse or the son or the daughter or a sibling or an uncle, whoever. I have done so much, but look how they are repaying me. Look how they are treating me. Pūrṇatvam, inadequacy, arising because of my association with the family. So parental happiness wise, Apūrṇaḥ, marital happiness wise, Apūrṇaḥ, domestic happiness wise, Apūrṇaḥ. And then there are my possessions. Inadequacy, because I feel that I don't have enough money. There are certain desires that I have to put off because the money that is required to fulfill them is not there. Or I want to buy a house in a particular locality, but I don't have the resources to procure it. So money-wise wanting, house-wise wanting, inadequate, apūrṇaḥ. And in some other situations, sometimes someone has quite a bit of property, but then the children start to fight over it. Then he says, perhaps I should not even have had this. So you have it, apūrṇaḥ, you don't have it, apūrṇaḥ. And then there's a profession. There is a micromanaging boss at work. When I'm coding, sometimes he's standing right behind me, looking at what I'm doing. Or there's a hard to work with colleague. Somebody who plays a lot of politics. Office politics. Make me feel apūrṇaḥ, inadequate. I do all this work, somebody else is taking the credit. I am doing the work, I am not getting promoted. I am doing the work, I am not getting paid commensurately. Pūrṇatvam. And then there are layoffs happening. My skills are 20 years old. I learned Fortran and COBOL, but these days people are programming in Python and Java. So I may get the axe. Apūrṇatvam. Inadequacy. All of these, because of the association with the profession, I say, I am inadequate. And then there are three aspects of my personality. I'm a doer, I'm an enjoyer, I'm a knower. Karta, bhokta, pramata. If I look at myself as a doer, I have a to-do list. I have to do this, I have to do this. Every day I'm checking off things on my to-do list. But as soon as I think I'm done, my wife says, oh, there are these 3 errands for you to run today. And I get a call from the boss saying, you have to do this project by next week. So 5 more items on the to-do list. As long as the to-do list is incomplete, the karta can never be pūrṇaḥ. The karta will always say, I am apūrṇaḥ. Incomplete. What about the bhokta, the experience? Somebody gives me a travel catalog. It doesn't happen here, but in the US, there is a lot of junk mail that comes, which contains a lot of these travel catalogs, etc. So if you look at it, or some advertisement on TV also, whatever it may be, the sources may be different, but you look at some material, advertising material, and they show these greenish blue beaches, greenish blue oceans with this nice sand nearby. And one feels that one should go and experience that place. So once it enters the mind, then I feel that until I have experienced that, I am incomplete. So a bhokta can never experience everything, has only experienced a limited number of things, and there are more and more things to experience. And sometimes he makes elaborate plans, spends a lot of money, goes somewhere, experiences it. And he comes back to talk about it. For example, this person went to the Niagara Falls, spending a lot of money. This person went there and he was thrilled, very thrilled to see it. And he comes back all excited to talk to his friend about it. And even before his friend can open his mouth, his friend knows he has gone to the Niagara Falls. Even before he can open his mouth, the friend asks, "Did you go to the Canada side of the falls?" So the first thing he has to start with is by saying no. And the friend finishes off the conversation. He says, "If you haven't seen the Canada side, you haven't seen anything yet." Even after he thought he had finished experiencing it, he is not yet done. The bhokta, he can never be complete. And then there's the pramata, the knower. The interesting thing about the pramata is that the more one knows, the more one knows what one does not know. This is why when somebody does a PhD, then he has done groundbreaking work in some area that was unknown before. He is the first person to know more about this particular area. But then he does this 200-page thesis. But the last 10 pages there is called future work. That tells what are the new areas that I have to look into that we don't know about. So all of this science and technology and all of this human knowledge, it can be compared to an island, a growing island. So the growth of the island represents the growth of knowledge. But then as the island grows, the shoreline also grows. The shoreline represents our ignorance. As the knowledge grows, the more I know, I don't know. And then if we come to our Shastras, the Shastras are so vast. The Yoga, Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Purva Mimamsa, Vedanta. And then there is Vyakarana, Pāṇiniya Vyakarana, Jyotisha, Natya Shastra, Sangeeta Shastra, Shilpa Shastram, Dhanurvidya. Dhanurveda is the Gandharva Veda. So there is so much that even to master one area, lifetimes aren't enough. Lifetimes aren't enough even to master one area. So as a pramata, one can never be complete. So I am deficient, wanting, inadequate as the pramata also. And then I see myself as this small creature in this vast world, subject to a lot of forces that are way beyond my control, from which a lot of obstacles arise in my pursuits. And these obstacles can be classified as threefold: adhyatmika, adhibhautika, adhideivika. So I have a job interview tomorrow. So I am looking forward to this job interview. And then that night I fall sick. I'm running a high fever. So this is an adhyatmika obstacle, an obstacle that has arisen from within my body, from within myself. Or I have this job interview. and I need to get good sleep that night, but the neighbor decides to play loud music. I can't sleep. I feel miserable. The Adi Bhautika obstacle arising from the beings around me. Oh, I have this job interview tomorrow, but then that night there are heavy rains, the whole place is flooded, the interview gets cancelled. Obstacle arising from natural forces. So because of all this, I feel helpless. I feel small, apurna, inadequate. And then there is old age, disease, and finally death. So whatever issues we talked about, the body, the health issues, etc., they become more palpable in old age because the body is undergoing a disintegration. In old age, I feel even more incomplete because of bodily issues. And then there are special kinds of mental issues also that arise in old age, which Swamiji calls the federal problem. There is some fear, FE, fear that I may get bedridden. And then there is some depression associated with all of these issues. I feel depressed, sad. There are regrets that perhaps I should have done this, perhaps I should not have done this. And then there is loneliness. Because a lot of my companions who are there, they have departed. So more Apūrṇatvam is there in store in old age. More inadequacy. And finally, there is death. I don't know if I have the courage to go through it. There's fear associated with death. So these are all the various reasons why this human being says, I am Apūrṇaḥ. From various standpoints, I am seeing I am Apūrṇaḥ. So from whichever standpoint I see myself as Apūrṇaḥ. So I conclude that I am deficient, I am wanting, I am inadequate, I am Apūrṇaḥ. This is the general conclusion of the human being, the most fundamental conclusion of a human being, because of which he needs these crutches. And the conclusion looks unassailable. The conclusion looks very obvious based on all the evidence that the human being presents. Presented evidence from so many standpoints, therefore I am Apūrṇaḥ. And this understanding that I have is reinforced by all other human beings also. When two people meet, they understand that this is our common situation. So what is your latest Artha pursuit? What's your latest Kāma pursuit? What's your latest Dharma pursuit? This is the discussion that happens. What crutches are you using in order to ease your Apūrṇatvam? Let's exchange some notes. Let us make each other wiser about how what kind of crutches I can use. Now, the interesting thing is that I cannot stand being Apūrṇa. So anytime I feel a sense of Apūrṇatvam, I make it a priority in order to remove that sense of Apūrṇatvam. And how do I remove this sense of Apūrṇatvam? By going after crutches in the world. So I pursue Artha, I pursue Kāma, I pursue Dharma. So the difference between this class and the fundamentals of Vedanta class series that we had earlier is that in the fundamentals of Vedanta series, we did not take the terms Artha, Kāma, and Dharma for granted. We went into detail into what that also means. Whereas here, we cannot afford to spend that much time on discussing the pursuits of Artha, Kāma, and Dharma. So, for anybody who is listening to this for the first time, as we have discussed, going through the fundamentals of Vedanta series completely would fill all those gaps in our understanding. So this person says, I need these crutches to stand, to walk. Therefore, I am going after Artha, Kāma, and Dharma. And what one pursues varies from person to person. The sense of inadequacy has some subjectivity there in terms of what makes me feel inadequate. For some person, it may be the lack of money. For somebody else, it is the lack of looks. For somebody else, it may be a professional issue. That varies from person to person. But the general thing is, I need crutches. I have to go after some pursuit in the world. Therefore, there's pursuit of money, there's pursuit of the house, there's pursuit of a car, pursuit of name, fame, position, power, promotion. For somebody, it may be a degree. For somebody else, it's research. For somebody, it's scholarship. Somebody, it's travel, there's sense pleasures, pursuit of sense pleasures. And for somebody, it may be a pottery class. Pottery, I'm going to this pottery class. Why? Well, it makes me feel good. It makes me feel good means that it makes me forget my sense of inadequacy for some time. And for somebody else, it may be a nose job. Somebody gets a nose job done because one sense of inadequacy was arising because of association with the nose. And therefore, the nose has to be altered for this person to feel better. And then there are prayers for health, wealth, prosperity, etc. Pursuit of Dharma. And behind the pursuit of Dharma is a pursuit that I want to gain adequacy sometime in the future. That is why I'm doing it. I cannot stand being Apūrṇaḥ, and therefore I have all of these pursuits. Now what happens? The general understanding also is that I cannot get complete adequacy out of these pursuits also. Sometimes I succeed in a particular pursuit. No doubt there is a sense of fulfillment, there is a sense of euphoria when a particular goal is accomplished. But then that is not a lasting sense of fulfillment. It is a fleeting sense of fulfillment. It's there. It's fleeting. It's temporary. And if we analyze this, every kind of gain in the world also involves some kind of a loss. For example, a person is really looking forward to buy this house. So he works hard and he manages to procure, he earns something, he manages to procure the house. But then now he has this mortgage that he has to deal with, that's hanging over his head, that I have to now compulsively work in order to repay the mortgage. And then if I don't do it, there's a possibility of a foreclosure. The house may be taken away by the bank. So unless I cannot get something, unless I invest something, that money this person could probably have used for other purposes. Now he sees that some of those other desires, he has to put a limit on it because he had this goal. So he filled this gap in Apūrṇatvam, but then some other gaps in his Apūrṇatvam become more evident. But he is working hard for a promotion, he gets promoted. And he feels happy, there's a sense of euphoria. But very soon he finds out that the promotion is associated with additional responsibilities. So he has to spend more time at work. And that means that he has to stay away from the family. Or he has to travel some more. Because of his travel, now he is having some stomach issues. He is missing his home food. So he filled one gap, but then another gap arises elsewhere. Apūrṇaḥ. Or he decides that I have to do this project, I have to work hard, etc. And he's staying up late and answering emails or attending conference calls. But then he finds that he's losing sleep at night. He feels very dissatisfied with his sleep situation the next day. So these kinds of things happen. And then in the pursuit of sense pleasure, when the object of pleasure and this person are united, then there is a euphoria for the time being. Definitely a sense of fulfillment. But then that sense is not lasting. Very soon some other situation arises in his mind, and then he has to he feels Apūrṇa again. Or then if he possesses a certain sense object, very soon he encounters that there is also something called boredom. The novelty factor has faded away. So such pursuits don't lead him to a lasting sense of fulfillment. And then sometimes he fails in these pursuits also. And when he fails in the pursuit, that is, the result he gets is less than what he expected or opposite of what he expected. Then there is helplessness. I feel that I put in so much work, I feel helpless. I did not get it. Or there is anger at some obstacle, which may be some person or a certain situation that prevented this person from getting the sense object. Helplessness, anger, frustration, depression. Again, Apūrṇatvam, inadequacy. So whether he succeeds, inadequacy. If he fails, inadequacy. So some of this is like, sometimes you might have seen this plastic ball that has a certain deformity at one point. And one says, this doesn't look all right, I have to fix this deformity. So you try to press it somehow and try to make it a perfect sphere. But in the process of pressing it, sometimes it becomes even more depressed. And you work on it and you manage to get it into a perfect sphere, a Pūrṇaḥ sphere. And then what you notice is somewhere else it has become deformed. When you try to fix that deformity, somewhere else it has become deformed. You can keep working on it, never becomes that perfect Pūrṇa sphere that you're looking for. So I cannot gain Pūrṇatvam through these pursuits. So this is my general experience. And logically also it is very clear that if I am inadequate, if I am Apūrṇaḥ, then an addition of another Apūrṇaḥ, inadequate entity cannot make the sum total Pūrṇaḥ. Inadequate me plus an inadequate object or person or situation, always going to be inadequate me. So as we have discussed our favorite example, all of these pursuits and accomplishments are like decorating a broomstick. You're decorating a broomstick with various ornaments, but that doesn't alter the fundamental entity, which is the broomstick. The broomstick remains a broomstick even if it's highly decorated. It is just a highly decorated broomstick. The Apūrṇa me with all these accomplishments, I remain Apūrṇa. All these accomplishments are at best a temporary escape from my sense of Apūrṇatvam, which very soon comes back. So my experience confirms this. Some people still have to learn from this experience. We'll get to that later. Some people haven't yet learnt this. So they still have more learning to do. That's a different point. But assuming my experience has confirmed this, and logic also confirms this. An inadequate me plus inadequate object, person, or situation will always be an inadequate me. And the experience of others also I can learn from. I don't have to necessarily go through everything myself. Some things I can learn from other experiences also. For example, one of the wealthiest people in the world, who had probably everything at his beck and call. He could probably procure anything in the world that he wanted. Underwent a painful divorce. And it was evident in one of his public interviews. He actually wept. It was evident. The Apūrṇatvam, misery was evident. Similarly, one of the wealthiest investors in India, he passed away, and not a ripe age. He was probably in his middle ages or late middle ages. And one of his regrets was that I invested in everything possible except my health. Because he was facing health issues for a while. So he had made this statement earlier. So these kind of things indicate even if somebody becomes very accomplished in a particular dimension, and can remain Apūrṇa in a lot of other dimensions, which make the sum total Apūrṇa. Very accomplished in one particular area, maybe wealth, position, power, name, fame, art, sciences, whatever you take, very accomplished. Pūrṇaḥ in all other dimensions, or even one dimension, one other dimension. If this person has inadequacy, he says, I am inadequate. So the thing to see is that I am saying I am Apūrṇaḥ. I'm pursuing a lot of things. I cannot gain Pūrṇatvam. So what do I do? Next thing to note is that I cannot drop seeking Pūrṇatvam either. I cannot drop seeking Pūrṇatvam. This desire for Pūrṇatvam, if we examine this desire for Pūrṇatvam, this desire to be adequate, fulfilled, this desire to be fulfilled, this is a natural, fundamental urge of the human being. So unlike, say, the desire for space travel, so there's this company in the US which is now promoting space tourism. So even recently I heard that some 6 people were taken to the boundary where space starts and then they were brought back. They are trying to promote this kind of a space tourism. So now about 5 years, 10 years ago, you couldn't have imagined this. Nobody had the desire for space tourism, to tour space. But now this company has made such a thing possible. So they are, I assume, advertising for it. Now, if somebody looks at it, one may get the desire that I want to experience space and this zero gravity kind of a situation. So if you look at this, this is a cultivated desire. This is not a naturally arising desire. The desire enters my mind because of some external sources. Now, this person gets this desire for space tourism, and then he sees what is involved. He calls up the company, and they tell him that there are certain fitness, conditions, preconditions are there. So for 6 months, you have to train yourself. You have to go jogging and run for half an hour, or do some of those exercises, etc. And you have to. The second thing is there's a lot of money involved. So when he hears about all this, then he says, "No, I don't want to pursue this," and he drops the desire. He's able to drop the desire by reasoning with himself that I don't want to spend all my time doing these exercises, or I don't have enough money for this, not worth it. He drops it. Or a desire for bungee jumping. This person wants to do bungee jumping. He goes there, and then they make them sign some form saying that it's a risky activity, and you may get injured or you may even die in this process. They make sign some form. And the moment he sees this, he says, "No, this is too risky." He drops the desire. So this desire for bungee jumping or space travel can be dropped because it's a cultivated desire. But the desire for Pūrṇatvam, adequacy, fulfillment cannot be dropped by the most fundamental natural urge of a human being. It is the urge behind all the urges. It is like the desire for, it is like hunger or thirst. I cannot drop my desire for food or my desire for water. Even though I may abstain from it, that urge is still there. So this desire for Pūrṇatvam cannot be dropped. So I do everything. I do everything in my capacity to remove my sense of Apūrṇatvam, because this urge for Pūrṇatvam is there. So if we look at our situation, it's like I am stuck between a rock and a hard place. Stuck between a rock and a hard place. The rock is my judgment that I am Apūrṇaḥ, I am inadequate, deficient, wanting, inadequate. This is my judgment that stands like a rock. And then on the other side, so because I am Apūrṇaḥ and I cannot stand being Apūrṇaḥ, there's this fundamental urge for Pūrṇatvam, so I have to pursue activities, pursue accomplishment in the world. But then I cannot become Pūrṇaḥ. The world is like the hard place. I try to become Pūrṇaḥ through accomplishments in the world. The world is a hard place. I cannot become Pūrṇaḥ. The world is a hard place. So I have my judgment. I am Apūrṇaḥ that stands like a rock, and the world is a hard place. I cannot become Pūrṇaḥ. And I cannot drop my urge for seeking Pūrṇatvam also. I cannot sit on this rock that I am Apūrṇaḥ. I have to move to the world, but there also I cannot become Apūrṇaḥ. I am stuck in between these two. I cannot budge this. I cannot move this. To get out, I have to shake one of these. I'm stuck. So compulsively, I pursue some activities in the world that make me feel fulfilled for a transient duration. So I'm nibbling on these breadcrumbs of fulfillment that I'm getting. And that is what keeps me going, actually. Keeps a human being going. It is this transient sense of fulfillment that I get now and then. That is what I am looking forward to in life. That's what keeps me going. If this transient fulfillment was not there, then a human being may not see much point in continuing to live. So then what is the solution? Is there any way to gain the lasting adequacy, gain this lasting fulfillment, Pūrṇatvam? Is there any way to gain that? Or am I stuck being Apūrṇa forever and being content with these breadcrumbs of fulfillment that I get now and then through these various pursuits, for which I have to constantly struggle? This breadcrumb of fulfillment is not obtainable without struggle. So what option do I have? Is there some such thing called lasting fulfillment at all? Unconditional fulfillment, is there some such thing? Is it even possible? So we say, this is a quote of Sherlock Holmes, who says that when you have eliminated everything that is impossible, then whatever is left, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. When you have eliminated everything that is impossible, then whatever is left, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. So let's take an example here, that there is a theft that has been committed in a museum. A theft has been committed, and there is an investigation officer who is assigned to solve this theft, find the thief. And this person is working very hard on the case, and he has examined all of the CCTV footage and all that. The only thing he sees is there's a blind man in the museum. He was sitting there. CCTV shows that he was sitting there, and he went for presumably a bathroom break, and then he came back. He was just sitting there. And then he is now looking into, he is not suspecting the blind man at all. So he is looking into who else came in, who else went out. He looked at all of that. And he has now come to the point where he says, nobody else entered the museum. Nobody else left the museum. He eliminated every other possibility. So the fact that somebody else did the crime is an impossibility. He has come to that point. Then what is he left with? He left with a blind man. But it's very improbable that blind man could have committed this crime, because the crime involves breaking a lock. That means putting some wire in, a fine wire in, and then using some fine tools. Blind man could not have done that. Highly improbable. So he's very baffled by this. And then when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever is left, however improbable, must be the truth. Well, the only option left for him now is to investigate the blind man. So he turns his eyes on the blind man, starts observing his movements. The blind man looks pretty airtight. He can't find any hole that this person is blind. That statement, this person is blind, seems to be a true statement. So he decides to do an experiment. One day when this blind man is sitting in some restaurant, he calls a kid and gives him some kind of a, a reptile, like a toy reptile. And he pays him some small tips and tells the child to go and put the reptile on the desk of the table of the blind man. And the reptiles can even move a bit. So this child goes there quietly as instructed. And then suddenly places the reptile and runs away. And suddenly the blind man reacts. He reacts. That was a giveaway. A giveaway that this person is not as blind as he seems. Then he carried out some further tests and found that this person was not really blind. He was just pretending to be blind. So now I am stuck between a rock and a hard place. The rock is my conclusion that I am Apūrṇaḥ. The hard place is the world where I can never become Pūrṇaḥ. So if I have now come to the conclusion that I can never become Pūrṇaḥ, I cannot move this place that is hard. This is airtight. I can never become Pūrṇaḥ. To any pursuit in this world, if that has become clear, that's an if. For a vast majority of the human beings, that has still not become clear. We will talk about that later. But assuming that that has become clear, then I have to eliminate the impossible. That becoming Pūrṇaḥ is impossible. So if there is any sense of lasting fulfillment, if there is any sense of Pūrṇatvam that I can obtain, the only thing that remains for me to look at is the rock, the conclusion that I am Apūrṇaḥ. That's the only thing that is left. It appears very probable that my conclusion is right, that I am Apūrṇaḥ. But is that really true? Is Apūrṇatvam my nature? That's the question. So the nature of fire is heat. Fire is hot. In this statement, I can never find a deviation in fire. In my experience, I can never see that fire is not hot sometimes. That statement is unassailable. Fire is hot, is a true statement. So is the statement sugar is sweet. I can never find any deviation in it. Sugar is always sweet. Have I ever found some sugar that is not sweet? In that case, it is not sugar. So when I have truly ascertained the nature of something, then my experience is that there is never any deviation from it. But in the statement, I am Apūrṇaḥ, is that really airtight? Is there any deviation from it? So far, I've never examined it. A person begins to examine this only if one has eliminated the impossible. Just like this investigating officer started to look at the blind man only after he investigated every other possibility. So if I have determined that becoming Pūrṇaḥ is impossible, only other conclusion left for me to look at is that I am Apūrṇaḥ. Is Apūrṇatvam my nature? Is there any deviation from it? This examination begins. And in my experience, I see that I do find a deviation from this. And when does the deviation happen? When I'm getting those breadcrumbs of fulfillment. When I'm getting those breadcrumbs of fulfillment, at that point, if I look at what I say I am, at that, in those fleeting moments, I say, I am adequate, I am complete, I am fulfilled. At that point, I don't find the need to change the world. So I see that there is some deviation in my own experience. Or as Pujya Swamiji says, that if somebody tells me a good joke, at that point I heartily laugh. And when I'm heartily laughing, in those fleeting periods of my laughter also, I don't have this sense that I am inadequate. The same boss is there. Boss hasn't changed. The mother-in-law hasn't changed. The backache or the knee joint pain every morning that I have, that hasn't changed. But in those moments when I feel fulfilled, in spite of the world, I am fulfilled. At that point, I feel adequate. So I see this deviation. I have experienced that I am Apūrṇaḥ, certainly. But I also have the experience that I am not Apūrṇaḥ in these moments. So this should make me question, is Apūrṇatvam really my nature? For example, let us say that I am somewhere near the equator. Then I see the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. If this is my experience day in and day out, then I would be likely to conclude that the sun is moving around the earth. This is my conclusion. But let us say that I go to the polar area. In the polar area, what do I see? The polar area, I see that the sun moves in a circle around at the level of the horizon. That's what I see there. So now I have a contrary experience. At the equator, I have one experience that the sun is rising in the east and setting in the west. But in the polar region, I see the sun moving in a circle. So which of these is true? Is it true that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west? Or is it true that the sun moves in a circle? The fact that I have had a contrary experience should make me question both experiences. Which of these is true? Is the fact that the sun is rising and setting true? Or the fact that the sun is moving around in a circle true? Or is neither of those true and both are appearances? The third possibility is also there. So what contrary experiences tell me is that an inquiry is needed, an examination is needed. When I examine into this issue, I find that neither sun doesn't move at all. It's the earth that rotates. And my experience of the sun rising and setting is because I am located in a particular point on the equator. The experience that the sun is moving in a circle around the horizon because I'm located on another point on the earth. Just the standpoint brings about a difference in my experience. But both the experiences are an appearance. The knowledge is something else entirely. Or I go to an office. I go to an office, a government office regularly. Every week I go there for some work. And I've observed a crystal there in the officer's closet. I observed a crystal. Now I've just seen the crystal being red always. So all this while I had concluded that it was a red crystal. Then I visited him 1 week. I saw that the same crystal, a blue crystal. So far my conclusion was that it was a red crystal. The moment I see that it's a blue crystal, now that should make me question my original conclusion. Is it really a red crystal? Well, now it's blue. So then I examine the matter and I find out the crystal was really colorless. And because of the object placed next to it, it appeared red for all those visits I had been doing over the several years. It was red. But then that day, he had moved the red object away and placed a blue object nearby. That's why it appeared blue. So the lesson from these examples is that when there are contrary experiences, it means some inquiry is needed, some investigation is needed to find out what is the truth, what is the reality. So I have the experience that I am Apūrṇaḥ. And from this, I had concluded so far that I am Apūrṇaḥ was a conclusion that I have entertained so far. Like we said, this was the rock. But then, having examined, I see that I am free of the Apūrṇatvam also on some occasions, even though they are fleeting occasions, it doesn't matter. Fleeting occasions also okay. The fact that the blind man reacted for a moment was a giveaway. That some more investigation is required. Because if something is its nature, it should never ever deviate from it, no matter what be the place or the time. So this should seriously make me question whether this conclusion I have that I am Apūrṇaḥ, if it's a valid conclusion. I should look into whether I am Apūrṇaḥ is my nature, and sometimes I appear as Pūrṇaḥ, or whether I am Pūrṇaḥ is my nature, and oftentimes I appear as Apūrṇaḥ. Which is the truth? Or is neither of them true? Am I appearing as Apūrṇaḥ and Pūrṇaḥ, and I'm something else entirely? So I have to do this investigation. This is where Atma Vichara starts. That's why the Upanishad says, Atma Vare Drashtavyaha. The Atma has to be examined. The self has to be examined. So why this self-knowledge? Why study Vedanta? Because I now have come to the point where I have to examine this conclusion that I am Apūrṇaḥ. That's the only thing left with me. You have exhausted every other possibility of becoming Pūrṇaḥ. That is impossible. So I have to examine this conclusion that I am Apūrṇaḥ. Is it really true? Or is it like that snake that appears on the rope? So I have to direct, just as when I'm seeing the snake on the rope, when I direct the torchlight, that dispels the idea of the snake and replaces it with the truth that this is a rope. Similarly, I need to direct the torchlight of Vedanta upon myself to see whether this conclusion I have that I am Apūrṇaḥ, is it really true, or am I something else? Am I Pūrṇaḥ? Appearing as Apūrṇaḥ. So, Vedanta tells me that if I do that, the end point of this discovery will be that I discover myself as being ever Pūrṇaḥ, unconditionally Pūrṇaḥ. This is the discovery that one comes through Vedantic inquiry, through the study of Vedanta. And this means the end of all suffering and all struggle. Because once I discover that I am really Pūrṇaḥ, I don't have to struggle in the world in order to become Pūrṇaḥ. I can cross out that struggle. And the second thing this implies that no matter how the world changes, I remain Pūrṇaḥ. Because my Pūrṇatvam is unconditional. This is the discovery that I have to come to through the study of Vedanta. So Vedanta study becomes important. Self-knowledge becomes important. And therefore, the study of Atma Bodha becomes important. Therefore, let us commit ourselves to this study. Om Pūrṇamadah Pūrṇamidam Pūrṇāt Pūrṇamudachyate Pūrṇasya Pūrṇamadaya Pūrṇamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.